Hey, good to see you. Devin Peterson here. I want to answer the number one question that I get from every single business seller I interact with, which is what, Devin, is the process for selling my business? Okay. And actually, even before I answer the question, I want to point out why it's the most common question. The reason that it's the most common question is because most business owners ever only own one business in their lifetime, especially smaller and mid-sized companies. So they're fearful. This is their baby. This is the thing that has provided them income. This is the thing that's provided their family a great lifestyle. It's sent them on vacation. It's bought homes. It's taken care of their employees, or with to them are an extension of their family. For the ones who've been around with them for years. So businesses are a big deal, right? And there's a lot of psychology into business buying and selling that we deal with. I tease my wife; she's a marriage and family therapist, and I tease her that we're kind of in the same business because we talk about feelings all day, every day. And in my business, though, we don't explicitly say that's what's happening, and I don't tell people like, "Oh, it seems like you're being very fearful about this process," but that's basically what it is. And instead, I say it a different way, and I say it, in a more entrepreneurial way or whatever. But that's truly what it is. It's like people being scared about parting with their baby or buying someone else's baby for the first time ever because they're coming out of corporate that feels comfortable because they've been doing that for years, but they know they're bored and burnt out on that, like I was. And so I said, screw this. I want to have my own destiny. And they decided to go buy a business, right? Long story short is there's a lot of psychology involved, right? And so we just need to respect and understand that. And that's why this question comes up so often. And what's the process? What's your process? Blah, 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 blah. Some of them even kind of puff out their chest and say, Devin, what's your process? As in, like, they're questioning if my process is appropriate or thorough enough or good enough, even though they've only done this. This is the first time in their lifetime, whether that be a buyer or a seller. By the way, most people I deal with are noobs, brand noobs to exactly what it is we're doing. And that's okay. That's fine. And part of the reason why they feel like they need to puff out their chest is because we as business owners or potential business buyers are professionals. We're putting up real money to change our circumstances in life. And really what we're mostly fearful about, or what most of the psychology is, like letting our baby go and moving on to a new stage of life, or for a buyer, moving on to this new stage of life and putting up a bunch of money and taking on a bunch of debt to buy this new thing, to take on a new stage in life. So that's important. I respect it. I get it. I've done it personally multiple times over. And so I understand. I really do. And that doesn't have to be the reason why we don't take action. That doesn't have to be the reason why we delay the process for who knows how long. Okay. So let's not let those fears get in our way. But let's go back to answering the question now. What does it take to sell a business? Okay. Okay. So the first and most important reason, because of the psychology that I just described, the first and most important factor or step or thing to consider in selling a business is motivation. Number one, business seller, are you motivated? I was speaking about an hour ago to a gentleman who's owned a business for years, trucking and transportation. And he asked me, Devin, I've got two different paths I can go down. I can go growth or acquisition, or I can sell. What should I do? And I said, I can't answer that. I can't answer that for you, bro. Like, because that's a passion question. That's a motivation question. And so what I told him was, you know what? All of us as entrepreneurs, we don't start a business, grow a business, pour blood, sweat, and tears into a business because we have the idea that we're going to fall out of love with that business, like getting married. Nobody calls our divorce attorney on the day that they're walking down the aisle. Nobody does. Same thing with business, right? And really, like something like a business, you really are married to the business because it consumes you and it really challenges you and it broadens your horizons, And so similarly, we never think we're going to fall out of love that business, but every entrepreneur will. Even the ones who've grown very big businesses, they fall out of love with it. And, some people just, what they do is they decouple themselves from the business and they let someone else run it, or they sell it and they move on to the next adventure. That's what QSI does. That's what we do at Peterson. That's what we talk about, which is use liquidity events to respect the passion cycle and move on to the next adventure. Anyway, so once I explained that to this gentleman, he's like, okay, great. How do we start the selling process? Basically, right? So what he told me is like, through that response, he told me, yeah, you're right. I need to move on to the next adventure. So my motivation is strong to sell this thing and move on. Okay. So you seller, if you know you are ready, you have to commit to this process and be ready to go. The reason being is because if you don't have that motivation, as you go through the cycle of a sale process, it is extremely exhaustive, time consuming, thorough, and psychologically draining, basically, because they're going to look under every nook and cranny of your business. They, as in Devin, the business broker, as in the business buyer, as in the bank, government entities, right? Because as you sell, you're going to have to potentially pay taxes, and you're going to have to change entity structures and etc. So you basically have to answer to everyone through the process of selling a business. Now, by the way, when you use a really effective intermediary like me and Peterson, you don't need to be fearful of that, because we're going to handle a lot of that stuff for you. It's the number one reason why you should not do this alone, quite frankly, because of all of the steps and the process and the psychology involved. But that's not the purpose of this video, is to sell you on using me. The purpose of this video is to help you understand what exactly is involved in the process. And because it can be so challenging in terms of steps, in terms of quantity of time, in terms of quantity of investment, in terms of the intrusiveness of the process, then yeah, you should use someone else, and you need to be truly, truly motivated. If you are not, do not start this process. But if you are, commit to it and do it. Okay. Part of your motivation shouldn't just be the fact that you want to divorce your business. Part of what you should be doing too is thinking about and dreaming about and envisioning what could be next. Right. So think to yourself about, what could life after this business be? That could mean buying the next larger business. That's what I'm excited to do. I'm doing that personally. I'm selling a business, and I'm going to use the proceeds as a 10% down payment on the next larger business. And I'm going to be able to grow the income I was making out of that first business by 5 times, 5x, not 5%, 5x, 500% more money by acquiring the next business. So if you're young enough and you're excited enough, that could be it, right? Or maybe it's the next smaller business. Maybe you just want less responsibilities, less headaches, less employees, whatever that is. Great. Then you could do that with the next smaller business and still have something that you're engaged in, but that you don't have to be engaged in full time. So that's another option. Or, sorry, this is my dog in the background. The next possibility. So regardless, like just dream about what you're going to be doing next. Okay. So once you've clarified that you are motivated and you are ready to go, awesome. Let's go. The next step is then work with an intermediary like me to value your business. Okay. You need to be clear on what the value is. Ideally, I would love if every single business owner knew exactly what their business was worth every single year. Most business brokers do not charge for market valuations. Market valuations are different than the $5 to $7 to $10 to $15,000 business valuations that people with a bunch of letters behind their name do for you, because those kind of evaluators are just like real estate evaluators. They come in and they look at the market and they look at the trend and they lick their fingers, stick in the air and feel the wind and all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful. We need those people. Banks use those people to validate the value they're about to lend on. Absolutely. But just like real estate, most of those valuations tend to come just above the price, right? And working with one of our partners who's been a 30-year SBA lender veteran who has done hundreds and hundreds of deals, pointed out, he said he's never one time had a value come below the price that was agreed upon for the business. Not one time. in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals. So we're not talking about the valuation that you're going to do with the people with all the letters behind their name. What we're talking about is a valuation of from a business broker, an intermediary, who hopefully, ideally, will also run this by a bank to tell you what they think that it's going to be sold at, not what the value is. Okay. So go to an intermediary who most likely won't charge you because they're going to have already a tool and a process set up. And don't go to a broker who says, how much do you want for your business? And that's what they price it at. That's stupid. Do not do that. Those are brokers who don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, there's far too many out there who do not know what they're doing. Please do not go with those brokers. Just because they're telling you what you want to hear does not mean they're right for you. Go to the professionals who can clearly walk you through exactly why they priced the business the way that they did. Okay? Because they obviously know what the hell they're talking about. Please use those intermediaries and use them to constantly and regularly evaluate your business. Every year, you get your taxes, you have to do it, otherwise the IRS is going to chase you down. And just pretend in your brain psychologically that you therefore have to, otherwise you're going to get chased down, you're going to get beat over the head, because you will, when it comes time to sell, you're going to get beat over the brain, whether you like it or not, if you don't do this process proactively. So please do this process proactively, where you are going to a market valuator and asking them, what do you think this is worth? Okay. Go through that process with them. Should only take them a couple of days. We at Peterson are some of the fastest evaluators out there because we've got tools and techniques and expertise to tell us. I mean, I can even back of the napkin tell someone what I think their business is worth. It's not a true valuation, but I can give you an idea, right? Because that's how much expertise we have at Peterson. So go to those kind of evaluators and then turn around and go, that way you have the information, okay? So always know what your business is worth. If you haven't done that and you're ready to go sell now, okay, fine, so be it. You're ready to sell now, that's great. And so the first step needs to still be evaluation. Again, if you're working with an intermediary who doesn't actually value the business, instead they say, what do you want for the business? Run the other direction and find another business broker or intermediary right away, okay? So once that happens and you've done the evaluation, the next step will be is that you agree on who you're going to work with. Okay, what broker you're going to work with. You could choose to do this by yourself, but God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, like good luck to you, because I just explained to you why you shouldn't do that, right? Because of the psychology, because of the complexity, because of the finances. Like most people use brokers for selling real estate. And no offense to my business broker friends out there, your job is critical. I will always use a real estate broker out there. But quite frankly, the reason that business brokers charge more, almost double, is because there are so many more nuances to business brokering, to business buying and selling. It is pretty complex, okay? I've even got friends who are commercial real estate brokers, and they say, Devin, I tried doing some business brokering. I will never do it again. The smart and super highly effective commercial real estate brokers out there, they know better and to get into business brokering because it's so much more complex. There's cash flows, employees, vendors, taxes, you name it. There's all this other stuff that's involved. Real estate, it's like, hey, do you like it? Great. This is the price. Want to negotiate? Businesses, it's like, here's the cash flow. Here's the history. Here's the tax returns. Here's the employees. Here's the vendors. Here's the operations. Here's the process. Here's the marketing. So much stuff goes into business buying and selling. So if you're willing to do it for real estate and trim off 6% off the price to be a broker, why would you not do that for businesses? Right? Even if you think you have a buyer lined up, even if it's your kid who's going to take over the business and you've got a clear line of sight of exactly how you're going to get rid of that thing, why would you not bring in someone who's an expert in valuing the business and helping you secure financing and helping set up a deal and helping structure everything and helping facilitate? Why would you not do that? I will never not do that for real estate. I will especially never not do that for business brokering. Okay, so once you've decided on that intermediary, you have a valuation, you've chosen your intermediary, and I'm happy to be that for you. Next step is now we got to go market. So ideally, your business broker should have already an internal pool of buyers to connect with, right? Once you have that internal pool of buyers to connect with, they should also be ideally going out externally to buyers, right? So go to common marketplaces where these things can be marketed. And I should step back for a second. Even before going out to those marketplaces, you have to position the business ask as many questions as humanly possible about the business to try to preempt questions that buyers would want to ask. Okay. So where's the business located? How does it make its money? What are its revenues? Does it have higher concentration? How long has it been in business? How many employees do they have? What are the tenures of the employees? You should ask tons and tons and tons of questions. Our questionnaires include a couple hundred questions that we ask. Some are yes, no's. Some are pretty complex, right? And so we go through this entire thorough process of doing a pre-vetting process if we're a buyer. And quite frankly, I'm a business owner. And so unlike many other brokers who are not previous business owners, I can and do regularly ask these questions that I would normally ask, even above and beyond our questionnaires, that a business buyer would ask, because I'm looking to the frame of reference of a business buyer. Out of genuine curiosity to understand how the business functions, I'm asking those questions and I'm pointing out red flags as we go, right? And so you really want a broker who's really being very thorough with you up front, because that's going to change the dynamic of the process of selling the business, is really making sure that we fully understand the business, we fully vetted it, we have fully understood exactly how it's working, so that that broker can answer those initial questions and be able to identify red flags and be able to position the business in so much a way that we're preempting concerns and questions and otherwise. Okay. So position the business, prepare to market it, dealing with an intermediary who has an internal list, knows where to go to find external buyers, and then go to those marketplaces. Then the vetting process happens and they're starting to talk to buyers, making sure they're well qualified. If you don't work with a broker who thoroughly vets people, there's another red flag for you. Please vet that out too. Hey, how do you vet buyers? Ask that question. How do you value businesses? How do you vet buyers? How do you position the business? How do you market the business? Ask an intermediary those questions. If they can't answer those in a way that's super thorough, well educated, well thought through, passionately, without having to review their notes and go read the manual, don't work with that broker. Okay. And by the way, there's very few that can really answer those questions pretty confidently. So yeah, you'll find out for yourself. Anyways, so you go out there and you market that business. Your broker's helping you to vet, weeding out the tire kickers. We entertain between 50 and 100 buyers per business listing. 50 and 100. Do you know how many actually end up making an offer on those businesses? 1 to 2 to 5 tops. So less than 10% end up making offers on the business. The reason for that is because buyers are just as scared. They're just as scared as you are about this whole transition, this whole process. Will my baby be taken care of? Buyers are thinking to themselves, like, should I really do this? Should I leave my day job? Should I leave my security? Should I leave my comfort of what I'm doing today? Is this the perfect deal that I have lined out for exactly what I want? Does it check every single one of my 37 points of pre-qualification or not, right? They're just going through all this stuff to de-risk for themselves because they're scared too. Most business buyers of small and medium-sized businesses are first-time buyers. They're scared out of their mind. So many of them are just tire kicking because they're like just teasing the idea of buying a business. And a good broker should sniff that out like that and be able to move on past those people right away, right? Or help them, even just give them feedback. I have a meeting with every single buyer, every single one of those 50 to 100 people who are willing and wanting to and reply to my messages. I have a meeting with them and I just have a conversation. What are you trying to do? Why are you inquiring this business? What's going on? What's your goals? And I just try to have a conversation with them as a human being and someone who's already been there, done that, and try to understand what their process is and what they're trying to accomplish. And probably 30% of those meetings, I end up saying, like, I don't think this business is for you. You should not have inquired on this business. And I move them along for them. I offer them up some help and support, and that's about it. And then they need to move on because they didn't clearly read the business listing when they inquired. Otherwise, they would have known it wasn't for them, right? Anyways, go through that process of the short list of people who are truly qualified and good buyers. You may end up spending some time with them, either on site or virtually through a phone call, whatever, and just have a conversation with them about whether or not this business is truly for them, right? And learn from you. During that time frame, all you're doing is being yourself, right? There's no good, bad, or indifferent ways you should be approaching that meeting. Just be your authentic self. Don't be overly self-deprecating if that's how you naturally are. Just be as balanced as you can be about what's working well in the business, how it's served you really well for the period that you've owned it, and what you would do to continue to grow it, the areas of opportunity where you haven't done a good job and someone else can come in and really do a good job with that, because buyers also want to see the potential in the business that they can improve. Okay. So important that you point those things out, because don't pretend like your stuff don't stink. It does. And it's okay. But don't only focus on the stuff that you've not done well. Because if you've been running this for a number of years, it's obviously been paying you enough to keep the thing open. So give yourself credit for that, right? And take some solace in the fact that you built something of value that's worth selling. Okay, so don't go too far extreme other way. Your stuff don't stink and there's nothing to improve and you've done everything perfectly, so if you take this over, you better not screw it up. And this thing's not worth much. Why would you want to buy this thing? Don't go either extreme. Go down the middle road of like, there's stuff we've done well, there's stuff we've done not so well. Okay, so once we're going through those buyer meetings, if we finally land on ideally one, most businesses only get one offer. Okay, so typically that one buyer, sometimes I'll get multiple. I've got multiple listings, I've gotten multiple offers, but some of them pan out better than others for whatever reason. Sometimes that buyer falls through, who knows what, right? But basically try to look at that one buyer who's the first offer that you get, look at it as a legitimate offer, okay? And really try to engage with them. Don't always like brush them off and move on to the next one. I've got one of the first deals that I've ever had in terms of brokering, got a good offer, seller denied it, 7-8 months later, not another offer. Okay, so don't always just reject the first one just because it seems lowball, just because it seems aggressive, whatever. Have a conversation, have a back and forth, and just see where you kind of get. Go through that offer process. Once you have an LOI, letter of intent is the most common terminology. We call it offer to purchase at Peterson. We have a very clear structure, which is another thing you should look for in brokerages. Do you have good structures, good documents, good templates to deal with, an offer to purchase and then an asset to purchase agreement or a stock purchase agreement? And you have financing relationships, because then that's when the real process starts, by the way, right? It seems like the real process is finding the buyer. That's not the real process. The real process is hand-holding that buyer through an offer, through due diligence, which basically due diligence just then asking basically, right? Because if they're using the SBA could do, and the SBA-backed banks do far better jobs doing due diligence than any given buyer, unless you're hiring a third-party due diligence company who have CPAs and lawyers to go do that for them. But banks, that's what they do. That's what they do. They're just going to research everything. They want to see every tax return. They want to see, last 3 years, P&Ls, balance sheets, bank statements. Let me show me everything, right? They are scouring that business to make sure that it does not fall through. Because if that bank, who's SBA backed, is going to, if that loan defaults and they have to go back to the SBA, they have to prove that it took every step the SBA would have expected to make sure that the due diligence was done in that deal, that it wouldn't default. And if for some reason they didn't do that, they are jeopardizing their status as an SBA lender, or jeopardizing their level of SBA lending. There's preferred lenders, then there's just lenders or whatever. And so if they're a preferred lender and they have defaults, number of defaults, so they didn't do their due diligence, they could drop in status and no longer be a preferred lender. So the SBA is going to more scrutinize their future deals. So it's a big deal for a bank not to do this right. So the banks actually are your best due diligence resources possible, right? And that's what saved me on my first deals. I didn't hire any due diligence. I just did it myself based on personal experience and ran through the bank. Bank did the due diligence. 3 years later, I'm still successfully running that business. So if it wasn't for them, and I just bought this thing on my own with seller financing or didn't do much due diligence, I'd have been in trouble. So we go through the financing process. Your broker ideally should be hand-holding that buyer through that financing process, because chances are the first time they're doing it. And the broker should be playing quarterback at this point. Hey, seller, we need this. Hey, buyer, you got what you need. Let's move this forward. Hey, guys, let's go. Let's get this part done, right? And then the broker should be facilitating the APA part and have a good third-party neutral legal team involved with them. If they don't already have that, there's another red flag for you on the broker. They involve a lawyer to make sure an APA is drafted that's a neutral representation of both buyer and seller, and they focus on the deal to make sure everything's well documented, clear, well structured, to make sure the deal is successful, right? They're not representing either buyer or seller. Be careful in over lawyering. If you start from scratch an APA and then each buyer and seller, you are going to rack up legal fees to no end at a rate of $300 to $500 an hour. Do not do that. We're able to do it for pretty cost effectively, a few $1,000s split between buyer and seller, between 4 and 6, something like that. that we pay to a neutral third-party attorney who does this all day, every day, and they focus on the deal, not either party. Very important. Get them paid up, have them draft all the legal documents, and then there's a document legal closing. That's the closing of the AP and everything else. And then there's the bank closing. Bank underwriting for SBA lending takes between 30 to 60 days. Okay. Then there's a transitionary period where there's some handoff between 1 and 3 months or longer, depending on what the structure is built out, where you'll have to make sure that the buyer's got a good footing to move on and to take over the business. Okay. So it's quite a process, as you can tell, right? There's lots of steps involved. All of them are reason to involve important key advisors in these processes, because if you don't, you will miss a step. I promise you, right? So make sure you involve key people. But that's the process. It's thorough, it's detailed. You don't have to be an expert in every step of the process of the business, seller or buyer. Just make sure you're using the right advisors, know enough about how the process works overall, and then just make sure you're tapping in really critically great advisors in this process. And if you do, you will find success in selling and buying of businesses. So I hope this helps. I hope this answers all your questions. If you have more, please reach out.